One of the biggest issues with cloud cost management and FinOps in general right now is that it is incredibly reactive, right? We start from the cost and usage report and we work backwards to say, okay, why has the bill gone up so high? What are the recommendations we can implement to reduce the costs? So it's always starting from that data source. Now, by definition, if you start from that data source, it means that the engineers are already done with their stuff. It's already in production and running. But if you're using infrastructure as code, what you can actually do is shift left and put this information in the path of the engineer before the code is actually merged. So check for policies, check for tags, and look at how much the code will cost if it was to go to production. Let me show you how. This is my GitHub. Infracost integrates with your GitHub, your GitLab, or Azure DevOps repos. And directly in the path of the engineer, when an engineer sends a pull request or a merge request, Infracost analyzes the infrastructure as code, the Terraform code that is coming through, and posts this comment. And this is all before the code is merged, right? This is when the code is being actually reviewed. There are three sections to this comment. The first is what we call FinOps policies. Think of these as the best practice recommendations from AWS, Azure, and GCP, from the FinOps Foundation, and from what we've learned from other customers. And we give you these out of the box. So for example, we say, oh, we see that the engineer is trying to launch the new web app, and they've set the instance type to the M3 to Excel. Actually, they should use the latest generation of the M family, which is the M6i to Excel. And we've done the mapping that the two XLs match, so the memory and the CPU matches. And with this change, they're going to save $1,300 a year. Plus, they get better CPU and increased memory capacity as well with the M6i to Excel. Things like GP2 to GP3, extended support, many policies, and I'll show you the list of policies later. But when we catch them at this point, all the engineer needs to do is click on the link, and they'll be taken to the exact line of code that they need to fix. It's super quick when we catch issues at this point to fix them. So that's part one, is the FinOps policies. Part two is tagging. Let's shift that left. So before we merge the code, I see that you're trying to launch the new web app, and I see the environment tag is already on there. However, the value that the engineer has put in is invalid of prod. We say the FinOps team has defined basically three allowed values for the environment tag. And Infracost does an initial fuzzy match and says, hey, did you mean production? Again, catching at this point is a 10, 20-second fix. It won't save you any money, but it makes everything better when it comes to tags. No capitalizations, no misspellings or missing tags. So that's part number two, tagging. And then part number three is, hey, how much is this change actually going to cost before we merge? So we can see the monthly cost estimate of this change is $962 increase. Plus, we show the engineer a breakdown of everything their code is about to buy, right? So the M3 to Excel, $350. The storage is 58 cents. Don't even worry about it. But the option for provisioned IOPS, input-output operations, is $77 to access 58 cents of storage. That is expensive. So this has been incredibly proactive. And what we've learned is after a couple of months of usage, engineers start to develop a cost muscle. Because we're not going to them and saying the entire business unit is spending $10 million. We're actually going to them saying your code costs this much. And there's so much more intrinsic motivation to change it at this point. Everything I've shown you here is for the engineer, directly in the path of the engineer when a pull request is open. Now, if I switch to Infracost Cloud, this is where, as the FinOps team or a platform team, you would sit and configure things. So now that we know the cost of something up front, what we can do is something called cost guardrails. Hey, anyone can make whatever changes they need, but if anyone tries to spend more than $5,000 on per change, or a percentage, or the total monthly budget is this much, then I'd like email notifications to go out via email, Slack, or Microsoft Teams. Or I actually require this budget to be approved before merging. This captures the budget, and this is what shifting left when it comes to cost means. If I switch over to the FinOps policies, these are the initial list of policies that we scan for, right? So lifecycle policies, if they're not using Graviton, if they're using the old instance types, GP2s to GP3s, IO1s to IO2s, there's a big list of things that we check for across AWS, Azure, and Google. We have new ones adding all the time, the most recent ones being OpenAI services that we check for. Now, what Infracost also does is at the beginning, we rerun the set of policies on your current main branch so that we know what is in the code base right now and that we need to burn these down. We do the exact same thing for tags. How many issues are currently existing in our code base and where are they exactly? Finally, what we can do is create campaigns. Campaigns are best practices that we want implemented directly into the engineering workflow. This is from the current. So for example, let's say we want to get tagging as a campaign and we want that to be 85%. You can go up to 100%. And we'd like that to happen in the next 90 days. And we're going to give a 14-day advisory period for the engineers. So as soon as we turn this on, the engineers will start to see, hey, tagging needs to be fixed. And you have until 14 days, so the 30th of July when I'm recording this, you are having an optional advisory period, and then it goes into enforcement mode, meaning the pull request will get blocked. There's a lot of other features within Infracost. However, if I step back and I say, okay, what is the point of the shift left? There are two things. One, on the left-hand side, is the governance impact. How many issues were prevented because we had Infracost implemented and Infracost caught and prevented these issues in the first place? But also, if you don't go into enforcement mode, 748 new issues were added, meaning the engineers saw there was a typo in the tags. However, they went ahead and merged anyway. And this helps our customers see exactly where in the company these issues are being introduced so they can take action on these. And the exact same thing on the right-hand side for costs. Hey, a pull request has come in at $10,000, let's say. The engineer saw it, reduced it down to $8,000 and then merged, meaning we prevented $2,000 going into the bill in the first place. That is a very quick overview of Infracost. There's plenty more. If you'd like a full demo, please reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to give you a full demo. Thanks.